There is a legend of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent, featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. Well, guys, as a trio of one-time blondes, we've all been tied up behind a big wall to be married to Kong. And I gotta say, I'm disappointed. I didn't think this is how I thought my life would turn out.
But you are married.
I know, but I have to get married again to a big monkey now.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah. I forgot that's how your religion worked.
What about you guys? How do you all feel about being married to Kong as a trio?
Almost a little, I don't know, like, maybe better than Godzilla? Maybe not.
Are we each getting married to a Kong, or are we sister wives?
We're going to be sister wives to a single Kong.
All right.
Can I be the lead wife? I feel like I need that.
I think you probably would be, and we would let you.
But I think the third wife has the shiniest time. I don't know. Maybe not. I'll take the middle. I don't care.
Okay. Say you're tertiary wife.
I'm tertiary wife. Look.
Yeah.
If it means that Kong rescues me from the occasional dinosaur and also provides me with some nice stuff, I mean, I'm okay with it.
Sam, did you know that dinosaurs were going to be a key point in the films?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I happen to have seen the original one a few times, but I didn't know that Gorosaurus was going to be in the second one that we watched.
That's right. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we know it's been a bumpy year, everybody, and it's bumpier still. But we are here to lead in another brand new Godzilla movie, Godzilla vs. Kong.
Dun, dun,
and
dun.
We've spent a few years celebrating Godzilla, so I thought we'd at least give Kong a couple months of our time. So over the next couple episodes, we're going to cover 4 King Kong movies, leading up to the Godzilla vs. Kong episode. Are you guys excited to focus on
our collective husband?
Yes, our collective husband.
Yes.
You know, I started very excited.
And it's gone downhill fast, huh?
Well, no, I mean, King Kong is a great movie. It's so good. I mean, I was pretty hyped, not gonna lie. No, I am excited, and I'm glad we're representing our hairier friend.
I started excited and then realized this is not the tired, drunk old man Kong that I know and love. But then he kind of came back. So then I got excited again.
In the second movie. So, yes.
There was the warm coziness of, the clothing and the sci-fi. And I was very happy to be back in that space.
The soft Vaseline rubbed camera.
The lipstick spy piece.
So, yes, if you haven't figured it out, the 2 movies we're talking about today are King Kong, the original 1933 movie, and King Kong Escapes, a movie where he fights a robot in Tokyo Tower.
Cool robot.
A pretty cool robot. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right into the synopsis for King Kong.
The whole thing must be said in your 1930s voice, your best narration voice.
Okay, I'll change it up for this one. We're entering new territory. In the depths of the Great Depression, filmmaker Carl Denham prepares to make a mysterious voyage. He's hoping to make his greatest picture yet, with the help of a beautiful dame. He finds his starlet in Ann Darrow, a starving young beauty. They set sail on the venture, with Captain Englehorn, Charlie the cook, and handsome first mate Jack Driscoll.
Ooh!
Eventually they reach Skull Island and witness a mysterious ceremony undertaken by the natives outside a giant wall. As soon as the chief sees Anne, he wants her for the ceremony, but the sailors retreat to the ship. That night, Jack and Anne declare their love for each other, but she is soon kidnapped by Skull Islanders. The crew gives chase, but only reaches the wall just as massive ape Kong picks up Anne. Carl, Jack, and some sailors set off in pursuit of Anne, discovering dinosaurs in a primordial jungle. All sailors are killed, except Jack and Carl, who end up on opposite sides of a chasm. Meanwhile, Kong fights and kills all kinds of giant creatures while taking Anne back to his mountain home. Eventually, Jack and Anne rush back with Kong in hot pursuit. The monster breaks through the wall and terrorizes villagers, but is downed by Carl's gas bomb.
Hang on, I can do a better one.
The sailors take Kong back to New York, the Big Apple, where he goes on exhibition.
New York!
During the show, Kong is enraged by photographers and breaks free.
What a story!
He goes in search of Anne, wreaking havoc, and manages to find her. Carrying Anne, he climbs the Empire State Building. He's shot down by airplanes. Toy's beauty killed the beast, apparently. So let's get the big hairy ape out of the way up front, or we'll just keep talking about it. This movie is super racist and sexist.
Yep.
If you're going into this cold, if you've never seen King Kong, prepare for that.
Well, so I watched this with Mac, and we had a good discussion about this because we were like, on the one hand, it's problematic. On the other hand, it's not as problematic as it could have been. It was a very strange thing. It was like, yes, yeah, boy, a lot of natives... And there's certainly like an Asian man on the boat who's saying like, me sorry and stuff. But on the other hand, they did cast an Asian man in that role as opposed to a white person. It was but yeah, it's a sign of the times for sure.
I thought because we had been progressing forward in a chronological order on Godzilla films, I kind of thought we were over the, we're going to an island and natives. But I forgot that we were, taking a far step back with this one.
This is our oldest movie by 21 years.
Wow. Well, look at that. When did movies and sound start?
Not too long before this, 28 or 29.
So this is within the first decade of film with sound?
It's in the beautiful window between sound and the Haze Code, which is, I think, the reason for a lot of its surprising qualities. Like
her bralette, I was shocked. I thought that was very scandalous for the time period.
Some pretty scandalous moments, and a lot of dummies falling into just falling to their death, and you just see it all.
Oh my god! So slowly, too. Brutal.
Sam, do you want to explain the Haze Code briefly for our uninformed audience members?
Yeah, this is I may not be completely accurate because this is from memory, but I believe that there was a previous code up until the late 20s that kind of ended. It was like the rating system of now, where there's, kind of moral standards and practices. And I believe that there wasn't one for a few years, and so movies got progressively more and more scandalous. Famously, I believe there's a Tarzan and Jane movie, which just has a scene of them swimming naked, just straight up, just a nude swimming scene. And it ushered in the Catholic Church kind of pushing for a new much stricter standards and practices code called the Haze Code, and it would have been 35 or 36.
I think it was even closer. I think it might have been 34. I think this was right at the end.
There was a span of maybe 4 or 5 years that, between where it was just the Wild West of doing whatever you wanted in a movie, and it would get shown. And this came right in the middle of that, maybe on the tail end. And so yeah, you certainly get more violence, I'd say, and more kind of scandalous, revealing clothing than I think you would certainly a couple years later.
In fact, it was so racy with some of these bits, like Kong biting the people and chewing on them.
Yeah.
Definitely the scene where he peels off Anne's clothes and sniffs on her.
Them falling off of that log was such a slow burn. it was really brutal, and at the same time it was comical because it looked like one of those like flash comedy films from, you know, where it's like dun, 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 dun. It's kind of like the vibe of it, but you're like, no, they're taking a solid like 7 minutes to like have these 5 people fall to their death.
It was so pushed for the time that when the Haze Code did come in effect and they re-released the movie, they had to cut out a bunch of these scenes, and they were lost until the early 70s, which is kind of crazy that for like decades people saw a pretty different King Kong. He probably would have seemed much friendlier, actually, because they cut out a lot of him like just killing people for the fun of it.
Yeah, like what was the reaction to this film when it came out? Were people like, shocking, scared, or were they like, fun?
It was a huge phenomenon. I think it was like the first blockbuster is what some people call it, because it really is just like kind of the modern forerunner of the special effects movie, like the adventure, fantasy, like all those things. And yeah, people loved it. People were screaming. They loved Kong.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I loved it. I hadn't seen it in a bit. It's one of the most spectacular movies ever made. Like, I don't know what else to say beyond, like, it's so unbelievable. Like, some of the effects and just like cool moments are so unbelievable, like for the time, but even now you're like, I can't, like, you know, I cannot believe that they pulled that off. I can't believe, you know, the like in you know, the scene where like Kong is shaking the guys off the branch, and it's like knowing that they, you know, probably had some sort of mechanism to you know, raise and lower that branch, and then they did the earliest of compositing that they could do to combine it with, you know, with a stop motion. I mean, it's just, it's awesome.
It's funny you called that shot out. I thought that was one of the better looking ones, the ones that still like, I was like, wow, that kind of works still.
Yeah, most of it does. I mean, hilariously, the stop motion shot that has aged the most is actually the shot where he shows up, where, you know, that's like kind of the most sort of herky jerky of the shots, and the rest, I don't know, it did it for me.
I think story wise, the first like 30 minutes, I was like, okay, here we are, you know. Oh, I need a poor gal off the street, and I need to make my movies, and I was like, all right. But then, you know, and of course she had no lines besides like, she had some, like, I liked their romance, it was cute. I started to care once they were on that ledge, and I kept just being like, run away, but she never did. But from that ledge on, and by the time they got to New York, which there was a solid also 40 minutes where I was like, I think maybe they don't go to New York. I was like, I don't think they go to New York. Like, this film's going to end, and I don't know which movie I'm thinking about, but he's not going to end on the Empire State Building. But I also like the part where he escaped in New York and was reaching into the hotel rooms. Like, my adrenaline was going at various points in the jungle and that hotel, even though I knew, I'm like, this is just like a stupid fucking puppet arm, like dragging a puppet dead. But also that one rando woman he pulled out and dropped to her death, I was like,
yeah,
this is way dark, this film.
That's probably the darkest part of the movie. Although him, like, purposely stomping on the natives, like, pulling them back when they run away too far, that's pretty twisted, too.
Yeah, and in the mud,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and with his teeth. Like, this is not the Kong that I know and love at all.
He actually ate those natives the way that my old dog used to eat banana peels, where she would be really psyched to like bite them and chew on them, and then realize she didn't like them and spit them out. But then she would immediately go back to it and start chewing it again and spit. And it was the funniest thing. It was just like, oh, I believe I love the taste of native, and then you know, better stomp on it. Oh, a native, delicious.
Yeah.
It's on a level of movies where I am so like blown away consistently by the fact that it got made when it did. It just like, it's like there aren't that many that are at that where I'm just like, I can't believe that they did this. This is crazy.
So what was Godzilla at that time? Like, what was he made out of? What were they using to create him?
Godzilla was obviously, like we said, 21 years down the line.
Sorry,
but well, you got mixed up. Well, in most of the shots, he's stop motion, like The Nightmare Before Christmas, and there also is like giant, I guess not robotics, I guess they were analog, which is kind of crazy. Giant machine Kong hands. There's a big giant bust of him they made. That's all the shots of people in his mouth. There's like a giant head they had. In the scene where he dies, I guess that's just like a little doll they dropped down the Empire State Building model.
Got bumped a few times, man. They were like, make him hit a few times. Not satisfying for a straight ball.
But yeah, mostly a little model about a foot tall.
I love the one larger model of the face that they go to just a handful of times. That's always very funny to me because it's a little different. He's a little more soulful in those close-ups. No
matter which Kong it is, though, he's very charismatic. I can see why he was like so instantly iconic. He has so many like weird eyebrow waggles, and like you can see when he's disgusted with something and when he's excited by something. He's very emotive.
Wow, it's weird to think because the company that does like Paranorman and stuff, that's Leica, right? They do stop motion. It's weird to think that now it's like such a like hipster novelty. It's like they're doing stop motion, and the behind the scenes videos are like, they took 12 days to film one scene of this car crashing into a building, a tiny building in a tiny stop motion town.
It's such intricate work.
They are pretty, though.
Have I ever told you guys the story? Actually, or on the podcast, have I told the story of going to a Leica screening at the DGA and the Q&A?
I've heard this story. I don't think you've told it on the podcast.
It's still the funniest thing, and it was basically I went to the DGA to see a screening of Kubo and the Two Strings, maybe a week before it came out. And there are these massive shots of, rippling ocean and, all this stuff with kind of like flying paper kind of being kind of manipulated in the air. And, and so there aren't any questions, and lots of hands go up, and, first person, oh, hey, so how did you, the paper, was that CG? And they're like, no, it was stop motion. Like, there's no CG in this movie. It's all stop motion. We did, did it in pieces. We composited in the computer, but it's stop motion animation, everything. Oh, okay. The big scenes of the water, was that CG? No, actually, that was stop motion. We did duplicate stuff. We did a piece of the water. We would duplicate it. Next question. So the way the way that the stuff was blowing in the air, was that CG? It was like hilarious to the point where like they had to be like, no, all of it is no more questions about whether stuff was CG. It isn't. I promise, it's not.
That is a great looking movie.
There's some effects in King Kong, and I think maybe knowing the limitations of the time, knowing what the limitations are. Some of the way that they do the handoffs between, stop motion monkey with a tiny stop motion woman, and then handing it off pretty seamlessly to the real woman the moment he sets her down. A lot of the kind of like composited shots. There's of course the one shot where they've kind of like rear projected a scene and they're walking around the dinosaur, which is you can tell what it is, but it's still, I'm just amazed that they even thought to try it. I don't know. I like it, it's so in the early 30s when sound equipment and sound cameras were so heavy, you couldn't like movies kind of took a step back in visual technique once sound came around, because just all the stuff that you needed to record sound, and those cameras were so loud, it suddenly limited the kind of stuff you could do. And so to just see this movie and just be like, oh, this is so ahead of its time. It's awesome. Minus, the racism and sexism, which of course is less awesome.
This is a rarity. This is the one time Sam is being the trivia nerd. And I'm just sitting back.
I mean, it's a cool movie. I don't know what else to say.
He's like, it was so impressive. Meanwhile, me, the first 40 minutes of the movie, I'm like, all right. I eventually caught on.
Only the first scene of the romance was kind of awkward. And I think the rest was like, yeah, I kind of like it. I like him, him going and on his quest to rescue her. But that first scene where he like hits her and then it's like, I hate women. And she's like, well, what about me? Well, no, I hate women. And then, next scene, well, you're not women, they all suck, but you're a little different. I don't know what it is about you.
No, the thing with that guy is he had never made out with anyone, and he didn't know what he was saying, and he was just trying to compensate for that.
You and Natalia had identical observations. Like after that first scene, she was like, this guy's a virgin.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. What I did really love, though, and was impressed by, was the fight with the T-Rex. And there was this like lift and roll that at first I was like, hold a second, I gotta watch that again. But then I watched it again and then he did it like 7 more times. I was like, oh, somebody was like, this is cool, and kept going with it. And then the jaw breaking, that was, I think, the first like brutal piece in the film of him just being like, huh? And when you watch a nature show and you're like, yeah, this is how an animal would treat something that it killed, just being like, is it dead? Just curious, not trying to be vicious about it, even though the act was very vicious and brutal.
And I love the little bit he does where after the jaw is broken and he's dead, he just like plays with the jaw, like the limp jaw. It's like very cute and horrifying at the same time.
And then later he like checks the serpent's head is dead. He's like always kind of doing that little move.
He doesn't realize he's killing them. He's just playing really aggressively. He's playing rough, and then suddenly they stop playing. It is funny that they go to an island, and the thing that is so amazing and impressive to them is this unusually large gorilla. Like, but it's just an unusually large gorilla, basically. And meanwhile, the island has literal dinosaurs. And they're like, shoot it.
They're not interested in bringing back any of the dinosaurs. It's just like, nope, it's gotta be Kong.
That's so true. I didn't realize that. I think I was just like, oh, here we go. We're on an island and it has dinosaurs now. Okay. But I didn't realize yet they didn't comment on it.
They really wanted to kill that first one. They shot him and he was down, and then he started to move and they shot him again. And I think that then they just like shot him again just for good measure. Just, make sure old extinct boy is actually extinct,
But speaking of the fights, this is my one piece of trivia. I was reading a little bit about the production, and the producer is this guy named Marion C. Cooper. And the original inspiration for King Kong was an idea he had, which was to film Komodo dragons and gorillas fighting, because that's just the kind of guy he was. So in a way, this has always been about King Kong versus Godzilla. It's just Kong is the ultimate gorilla and Godzilla is the ultimate Komodo dragon, really.
Wow, that is such a specific dream of his, and I'm glad it came to life in many, many forms and times. Have you guys ever seen whatever the early 30s movies is with the Abominable Snowman?
No.
Which is like stop motion?
You're not thinking about Rudolph, the Rankin Bass Rudolph, are you?
I was like, this isn't Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I am thinking Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. My mom kept walking by while I was watching, and she kept going, it's just like the Abominable Snowman.
It's a weird full circle moment, because King Kong Escapes is a Rankin Bass movie.
It's true. The next movie we're going to talk about is a Rankin Bass movie, which is the same people who did Rudolph and all the classic holiday specials.
Interesting.
We've talked a lot about the technical parts of this movie. Shall we get into the paper-thin characters, such as they are?
Yeah, I gotta say, the film director, what's his name again?
Carl Denham.
Kind of a dick. He kind of sucks. He's kind of a jerk.
He's definitely a man of the era.
Hollywood man. We're gonna make a picture and a movie and $1 million.
I kind of wanted him to not abandon his movie plans the moment Kong showed up. Like, I wanted him to be like, no, we gotta go in the jungle and film him. Instead he's just kind of like, nope, I'm not a filmmaker anymore, until they have the chance to catch Kong. And then he's like, I'm a showman of the highest order. Bring him back to old Broadway.
I loved all his showmanship in New York, though, of him being like, well, it wasn't me, it was Anne and her love. Like, don't put the picture on me.
I'm disappointed that she didn't just go like, dude, this is all your fault. Like, it's not like this wasn't so grubby. I went through a lot. Like, we a lot of people died. Like, I'm surprised that both of them roll with his showmanship, just in general. Why they didn't just go home and just decide never to have anything to do with it again.
Or also in New York, when he dies, they're like he's standing by Kong, and some woman is like, that's Carl Denham, the filmmaker. And it's like, he is the one who just destroyed Manhattan, just totally destroyed it. But they're not like, boo, they're like, oh my God.
One of the few things I liked about the Peter Jackson one, because we're not going to talk about that one, so we may as well get our only thoughts out now, is that everyone was disgusted with how selfish and horrible Carl Denham was in that version of the story.
I didn't hate the characters in this. They are thin, but Carl Denham's, you recognize him. I think it works to the movie's theme that, basically Kong is actually a victim in all of this, and he's a victim to, Carl Denham's force of mankind. And Anne is not the most interesting, but, she's not like embarrassing, and she does have a very good scream.
I liked Anne, I thought on the boat, everything, I was like, she's talking more than I thought she would. And then I think I was like, they're not even giving her one, put me down. But then they did in the next film we watched. So I was like, all right, we've at least made it to there.
I can't wait until next episode, because I might be mistaken, but Joanna, you're a Jessica Lange fan, are you not?
I haven't actually seen that much of her stuff, but is she in it?
She is. It was her film debut, and she plays a very interesting character.
Interesting. Well, I'm still excited.
I mean, they're charming. I don't think the guy playing Jack can act at all.
No, he cannot act for shit. Oh my god. I'm like, is he straight out of the army? Where the fuck is this guy coming from? I kind of almost liked the side characters more. I liked the boat guys. I liked whoever that captain of the boat was.
Captain Englehorn.
Yeah, I liked that guy. And the rest of them, I guess I didn't have necessarily high expectations for them to be deep, complex, super cool characters, so they didn't necessarily disappoint. They just kind of completed the task at hand.
One thing I want to get to before we wrap it up is I love the score. It has one of the first thematic scores of a movie ever. It's really cool. It's also super weird because it does a lot of what's called Mickey Mousing, where things that are happening on screen are in the music. Like when the chief's walking down the steps, with every step you hear a doo, so it's doo, 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 doo. Or even when King Kong falls off the Empire State Building at the end, there's no proper sound effect. There's just a musical blah.
Yep.
It's very odd, but it's a great score regardless. It really just puts you in the action.
Yeah, I was a fan of it. And I also want to give a shout out to all the snarky little New York lines they had of everyone going to the show. The woman was like, "Oh, this crowd," and he's like, "Well, I paid $80 for this ticket. You better enjoy." I was like, this is the New York crowd vibe. They're at the theater, but they're not that happy to be there.
Even 90 years ago, it's still recognizable.
I'll just say I had a real internal debate. I'm curious if what you two think of this, but I had a thought watching this, which was, this is far and away the best movie that we've watched for this podcast.
Sam, you are on something right now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's that controversial. Hold on. And then I was like, well, okay, let's think about how this compares to the original Godzilla. Let's think about this. And the original Godzilla has certainly more. It has more to say, for sure. This is way better made. It just is. I don't know what else to say.
No, Sam, did someone drug your dinner?
Sam, this is sacrilege.
No, this is. I don't think that's that controversial. I don't even think that's that crazy. It's a much more innovative. I mean, again, I don't even know why I'm defending what the AFI called the 40th best movie ever. It's crazy for me to have to defend this.
But I would argue that the story and the characters in the original Godzilla film are much better. You're just totally blown away by this little stop motion. You're like that scene in Parks and Rec where he's like, "I haven't been working. I made a Park stop motion film." I refuse to believe that the story and the characters in this movie are better than the original Godzilla.
I don't think that the characters in the original Godzilla are what makes it. I think the themes and I think the idea of the original is very good. And it has, but I don't think that it's I'm not there aren't any dramatic scenes in the original that are oh yes, wow, killer character.
What? When that scientist dies underwater, you don't think that is a dramatic, heart-wrenching scene?
I'm referring more to there's no when I say dramatic, I mean scenes of people talking that are particularly exciting. I will concede that thematically Godzilla is a much more meaningful movie. But I mean, I think these are the two best movies of the series for me, pretty hands down.
Ryan, are you crying inside now seeing us debate these?
No, I'm trying to see this in fair proportion.
No, he's so happy. He's I've trained them so well.
That was me in the Hedora episode when you guys liked it more than I did. And I love that movie.
But I also always loved the 1998 disc Walkman.
Why? We can't get into that now.
Oh yeah, you're right. That is the best one. All right, then it's Godzilla, and yeah.
Common ground, finally.
I don't think you're on something. Like, that's a totally valid perspective. I do think that King Kong is a little overrated. And this is coming from somebody who would still handily give it a B+. I think if we had like a week to prepare, I could probably write an essay giving Mothra a run for its money in terms of being the second best movie we've watched. But no contest that it was the most revolutionary, the most important, and the most impactful of the movies we've watched.
Yeah, I think the thing that I was feeling in it is I'm gonna lose you guys both so fast. If the first Godzilla was adjusted for the time, even in the realm of as well crafted as this is, that would be like, well, okay, that's like one of the best movies ever. Like, I mean, the craft of this is just like bonkers.
See, I think that's maybe where I'm losing you, right? Because like my like actoral past, I'm always like, what's the story? What's the character? What's the arc? But I don't have the like expansive, film knowledge in terms of like technological developments, like that terms of the craft. Like the craft of my knowledge is literally just the craft of the story, right? So I think that's maybe why for me. Also, my mom like loves Turner Classic Movies. She's like always watching movies set in the 1930s, 40s. So I think when I turned it on, I was like, oh, another one of these. Here we are. And again, it did take me until about 45 minutes in to be like, oh, wait, is my blood pressure going? Oh, didn't think that was going to happen.
In its context, in 1933, no question, Sam. But like with like cold, jaded eyes, that's where it loses something.
I think everything you kind of have to look at it through those eyes. And I think I'm thinking about it also as just like A, compared to its time, and B, like, can you imagine being in the 30s and going to see this? Like, oh my God. Like that like, it's like this and like 2001 and like Jurassic Park, or like the ones where you're just like, what? Like, that's like, that's it. That's your list. Like, it was just an interesting debate I was having. I was like, my gut reaction is to say this is the best one. And then I had to really like consider, well, no, I think that Godzilla is a more meaningful movie, thematically meaningful. But this is also the one that influenced a lot more. So I don't know. It's interesting.
You're more objective and I'm more like, how did I, party of one, feel watching the movie? So it's a totally different rating scale. And that's why Ryan brought different people on besides just himself.
And I'm sort of in the middle. I'm seeing it from both perspectives.
But I hear you, Sam, and I understand from the points you're bringing up that it probably could totally fall into that ranking of like being on the top.
I understand completely where you're coming from too. And I think that like, I think some of it's a product of the time, and I think that also, yeah, it's just not that kind of movie, and it's not the most like dramatically interesting movie ever, for sure. But I was like pretty mesmerized by it start to finish.
Right. Whereas I'm on the other end here, just waiting until like, when is the Ripley-esque female character going to arrive in a Godzilla movie? And I don't know.
Not for another like 50 or 60 years.
Yeah, exactly. So
without King Kong, there would be no Godzilla. There wouldn't be. So we have to give the man his proper respect. And with that, let's get into the judgments. If you haven't heard an episode before, first of all, welcome. You picked a weird one to start on. And how we do this is we assign every movie to heaven, purgatory, or hell, depending on how well it fits our personal criteria. However we like it, that's how we decide where it ends up. And normally we send it to Godzilla, heaven, purgatory, and hell. But I think we need a separate King Kong rating scale for these movies. I don't think they'll get along if they go to heaven together. So starting with the most obvious, Sam, does this go to King Kong, heaven, hell, or purgatory?
This is going to be a heaven for me. It's just too amazing. It's just amazing that it exists. That's my argument.
For me, it just barely makes heaven. There is something just arcane about it. On its face, there's so much stuff that doesn't feel like it works anymore. But there's just like the arcane craft of movie making is like built on the bones of this thing. And it's really amazing because it's almost 100 years old. Stuff that's 100 years old is like dusty dinosaur bones, and yet it's still kind of working. Still mostly working, maybe even. And that's pretty amazing. So I know that like I'm grading a little bit on a curve here, but I feel like that's fine because King Kong is just like a movie icon. So I'll grade on a curve for him.
I think I'll put this one in lowest rung of heaven, but I want to like caveat it as I think because unlike Godzilla, we're not watching like 507 King Kong films. So I think I'm going to hold the right to potentially shift this one around pending where I see the other ones land. That's my verdict. Because there's so much of me that like wants to be like, oh, old Hollywood, but I'll keep it in heaven for now.
I think that's fair.
I feel like I did something here. I don't know what it is. I'm feeling good about it.
Purgatory just has more of a negative tilt to it that like it doesn't feel like a flat middle, like if there was a totally flat middle, I'd be like this one, flat middle. But Purgatory has such a negative vibe.
Well, it sounds like you should have given it Purgatory.
Ryan, stay out of this. Shh.
Let Sam have his moment.
Give me this one. Give me my stupid, mean-spirited Western movie.
I mean, the most brutal review was from Natalia, who spent the entire movie on her phone.
Oh man, that hurts.
Yeah, it's right. The door is open. The door to Purgatory is open. Let me say that. So we'll see.
That sounds like a threat that God would make.
The door's open to Purgatory.
You're only on the bottom rung, Kong.
On to the next one. Da-da-da-da.
Here we go with King Kong Escapes. Sound effects at the ready. An evil scientist named Doctor Who, what? Has built a base at the North Pole for the purpose of mining Element X. This super potent nuclear material is of interest to Madame Piranha, a femme fatale representing some country or another.
Care for a drink?
Doctor Who has built a giant Mechanicong to mine the element, but the robot's wiring fails when exposed to the radiation. Meanwhile, a UN submarine expedition runs aground on Mondo Island, the new home of King Kong.
Gee whiz!
Commander Carl Nelson, Lieutenant Jiro Nomura, and also Lieutenant Susan Watson go ashore to explore, meeting a single islander before Susan is kidnapped by Kong. He fights Gorosaurus and a sea serpent to the death before returning Susan to the submarine, as the two apparently have a special bond.
Aww.
Kong!
Kong! The UN team's press conference reveals these facts about Kong, prompting Doctor Who and Madame Piranha to go to Mondo and capture him, killing the islander in the process. The UN crew shows up soon after to study Kong, but discovers the carnage. They chase the villains to the North Pole. Doctor Who tries to make Kong mine Element X, but his mind control device is shorted out by exposure, or something like that. As a result, the villains capture Nelson, Jiro, and Susan, and try to force them to cooperate and coerce Kong into mining. Eventually, though, Madame Piranha finds the tactics too cruel and frees the heroes during a tremor caused by Kong's tantrums. Kong escapes and swims to Japan for some reason, with all the humans following behind.
Woohoo!
Doctor Who uses Mechanicong to capture Susan and hold her hostage.
Kong!
Kong! Commander. Mechanic Kong and King Kong both climb the Tokyo Tower and battle it out, with Kong freeing Susan partway through the bout. Madame Piranha gives her life to sabotage Mechanic Kong's controls, allowing the real Kong to win. He then goes to Doctor Who's boat at Susan's direction and smashes it before swimming home.
Bye!
My Kong!
Kong!
So, as we sort of intimated, the dubbing voice for Susan is just
Awful.
amazing.
I would say like an 8 out of 10 impression of her.
It's so infamous that the nerdy Godzilla YouTube channels I follow, one of them has a super cut of like her just saying Kong, and another one of her just saying Commander over and over again. So, do you guys remember how King Kong vs. Godzilla was one of Toho's biggest successes ever, and they were trying over and over again to get the rights to King Kong back?
Mm-hmm.
So they succeeded this time because at the time the rights were in the hands of Rankin Bass of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer fame. They were making a Saturday morning cartoon called The King Kong Show. And so Toho partnered up with them. And the first script they tried to get approved was basically the Ibira script, as we talked about. So Kong was originally going to be the Godzilla role in that movie. But Rankin Bass turned that down because they said it was too strange. And told them to make a less weird story, which I don't think they did.
No.
But this script got approved anyway, somehow.
It feels a little bit like it was written as like, it could be a Godzilla movie or a Kong movie.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It would be really funny if the robot had stayed Kong-shaped regardless, even if it was a Godzilla movie. That would have been kind of fun.
That would have been pretty bizarre. There are a lot of Kong-isms in this movie, though. Like the fight with Gorosaurus is basically a one-for-one homage to the original fight with the T-Rex. Susan even sits in the same weird L-shaped tree.
There were a lot, and then the serpent part too. I mean, although he was he was out in the water, you know, it still felt pretty similar. My mom also I think both movies, she kept going, oh, this is like exactly what happens in Tom Hiddleston and Skull Island. Anytime she walked by, those were her two comments. Like, he looks like the Abominable Snowman, and oh, this is what happens to Tom Hiddleston. She loves Skull Island.
There is one shot in this with the helicopters flying towards King Kong, and it's like filmed from the perspective of a helicopter that does look very similar to something in Kong Skull Island, but I think it's just coincidence. But we'll see when we get there.
$5 to anyone who dubs Brie Larson like this actress. Tom!
Tom! She just calls him by the actor's name.
Yeah, by his actor name, yeah.
Of course, our handsome boy is back, Akira Takarada, as Lieutenant Jiro. Always charismatic.
So handsome. What a fun little group, right? Like, what a fun little trio.
Yeah.
Yeah, they managed to get like a really discount Sean Connery for the...
Now I'm about to ruin it a little bit, because the guy who plays Commander Nelson is a huge asshole. Like, such a huge asshole that I have to specifically call it out. I have a book that interviewed him, and he's just the rudest motherfucker. Like, he said that the Japanese can't make movies. They gave him so much makeup, he looked like a geisha, that he basically had to direct the movie himself. But the worst shit was he told a story about Linda Miller, who plays Susan. And he says that, like, oh, she looked me up later in life, and we met up, and she was just all fat and ugly.
Wow.
A complete jack.
Yeah.
His name's like Rhodes Rexman or something.
Rhodes Reason.
Rhodes Reason, which, what a great name.
He was, to be honest, though, the most boring of the three. So, like, the fact that he sucks kind of works. Kick him out.
He really did look like a police sketch of Sean Connery.
He's no Nick Adams, I'll say.
No, he's not.
The real heroes of the film were the bad guys. They had such great Doctor Who's costume. I mean, come on, his Dracula fit. Come on.
Yeah, David Tennant as Doctor Who. Ugh, great. Being a Time Lord, trying to mine for Element X.
What was the woman's name?
Madame Piranha.
Madame Piranha, when she pulled that lipstick out as her spy gear. Also, like, why did she have that amazingly sick, beautiful apartment with just like a shit ton of cocktail dresses and cocktail wear in the North Pole? Why was that happening?
She's just a woman who likes to be in The lap of luxury.
This had to have been extremely conscious of James Bond movies. Like, there's no doubt, right? I mean, it like takes a James Bond turn like 2/3 of the way through the movie with her like trying to seduce Sean Connery, right? Or is it? No, it's not. Who does she have? Who she's like kind of like?
No, she is seducing the fake Sean Connery, which is funny because she is in You Only Live Twice with Sean Connery.
Right, so she would know better. She's the only person who would.
Yeah, like again, when this film, like within the first 30 seconds of it, I don't know how long it took, after watching the 1930s one, I was just like, yes, here we are, slipping into this cozy place of this 1960s wacko weirdo sci-fi. I was like, of course we're going to the North Pole. Yes, I'll follow you there. I was having a blast. And I was watching it at like 11 a.m. on the Sunday, and I was having a great time.
I'm glad that this has become a comfort zone for you, Joanne.
Yeah. I was like, I'm in it for the fits and the characters.
The hammy villains are so fun. The guy who dubs Doctor Who is Paul Frees, who I love. He's in like all the Rankin Bass specials, of course. But my favorite is he's the ghost host in the Haunted Mansion. So we got a great classic voice as Doctor Who.
That could have been the villain's name.
Right.
Paul Frees.
Paul Frees, he's true. Because he lives at the North Pole.
He goes by Doctor Who. That's his like formal education name, Doctor Who, but Paul Frees is what his friends call him. I think too the fact that Susan just like a few times, as obnoxious as her voice was, like she had some okay, cool outfits. She was like pretty annoying a lot of times, but she did also go like, Kong, put me down. That was like all I was begging for in the first film. I was like, come on, Anne, just one line, try to command him like a pet.
But that's the inevitability of nature, you know? Like, Anne it could have said whatever she wanted, and Kong might as well have just eaten her. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, it's a different situation. I don't think that Anne saying anything would have made much difference.
Yeah, this is a much more sensitive Kong.
That's true. That's why I liked this Kong too more. He was tired. Did he even kill anybody the whole time?
He killed a couple dinosaurs. And he killed all those people on the boat at the end.
He did, but they were the bad guys.
I was going to ask, so he looks different in this than in Kong vs. Godzilla. He seemed to have an angrier face, or like a more kind of scowly face in this than his like droopy like hasn't slept in weeks face of the other movie. Did you guys get that feeling?
The main thing I noticed is that his eyes are bigger in this one. He's still looking incredibly shabby.
I thought he almost looked less advanced than the 1930s one. Like even more raggedy.
Oh, in the 1930s for sure. For sure. I'm referring to the 62 or 60.
I'm saying the 60 whatever one looked shaggier and worse of a put together craftsmanship than the 1930s one.
Yeah, he's a bag of rags in these movies.
But he was a nice bag of rags. Okay, what about the little Oscar Mayer Wienermobile hovercrafts that the Doctor Who team used to get to the ice? Like, I auditioned for an Oscar Mayer Wiener commercial when I was like 6 years old, and they had a Wienermobile in a parking lot of Jewel Osco in the Midwest, and like it looked exactly the same.
What did you do for this audition?
I sang very shakily, but there were two 13-year-olds who made it to the callback too, who had rollerblades and who like went and had a routine. And I remember I was so nervous because I was like, there's literally no way I'm going to beat these twins on rollerblades. And I didn't.
I guess we started to talk about the seduction scene, but I really want to dig into it because that is a bizarre and meaty scene when Madame Piranha is trying to put the moves on Commander Nelson.
It just really comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know what her plan was there, right?
Yeah.
Like, no expectation that it's going to happen. And there's no real, like story was a little like, what's happening? But I was again in for it because of the costumes.
I think it's just general purpose espionage fucking, you know?
No, I guess you could say she was trying to manipulate him, but it was so unexpected that you were almost like, maybe she's just into him.
I don't know, I thought maybe she's a little into him. But then in the later scene, she was in a different gown and also ready for the drink. Then I thought she's just a kind of depressed alcoholic who's kind of stuck on this North Pole area with Doctor Who she doesn't like that much, and she's just kind of down.
That's true. She's been alone a lot. She might just be ready. DTF always. There are some world-class clunker lines in this movie. I don't know exactly what it is, but when he like grabs her by the chin, he's like, "You're not Chinese, Japanese, Thai," and he's just like naming off countries.
I'm surprised he knew that many countries in Asia.
Oh, and there was one line that he was talking about. They were labeling the bad guy, and they were labeling Doctor Who, and he said, "An oriental skeleton, a devil who lies like a gutter rat. I have an idea who this is." I was like, what a fucking line. Jesus Christ.
It was 100% a Commander Nelson line. Later in the movie, Doctor Who says Nelson has been cancelled.
Yes.
Which is a phrase that really changed its meaning in the last 60 years, but is very appropriate here.
Yeah, it sounds like he would have been today.
Doctor Who was hip and with the times. Also, that was right after Nelson was just like playing chess with Doctor Who while the other two were freezing to death. So I was like, maybe he is canceled. I don't know. They
cut out part of the scene where Mihama's seducing him, and then he goes, "Okay, look, I got to level with you. I'm 100% a cannibal. I want to suck your blood, and I fantasize about eating you. I was in Call Me by Your Name, and I wanted to eat Chalamet."
Listen, the fact that Chalamet is about to make a cannibal-based movie with Luca is insane.
You know that Army wanted to be in it, and they're like, "No, this is not a documentary."
He thought, like, maybe they'll let me do some research just so I know how it tastes.
It's like, I wasn't method before, but I can be.
Oh my god.
Speaking of eating, another classic is when Susan is shouting to Kong and like doing weird sign language. She's like, "I sleep and eat on this ship."
Was Susan dumb? Like, she was kind of dumb, right? I don't know. Maybe?
Yeah, at a certain point, Kong just goes, "Please, you're embarrassing both of us."
And then I don't know if you guys have any more, but the last one I have is near the end when Madame Piranha has Doctor Who at gunpoint and he turns the knob on the machine. She's like, "What did you do?" And he says, "Nothing." And like the most obvious guilty voice.
Yeah, in general, I think I would describe this film as, quote, a real hoot. That's like the vibe I got watching it.
It's just so nutty. It's like the balloon idea from King Kong vs. Godzilla cranked up to 11 in every scene. It's like, why are you mining at the North Pole? Why are you using a giant robot shaped like a gorilla?
Yeah, why? So there's no reason for it to be shaped like a gorilla. It's just a robot designed to get this element.
Right. It's designed like Kong is strong enough to get this element, but like they could have picked any shape, realistically.
Yeah.
But he looks cool, and he looks pretty good.
Yeah, we like monsters fighting robot versions of the same monster.
We love his little hypnosis hat. Like, his little hypnosis hat is very adorable. And Element X, the name of it.
Is that what Powerpuff Girls' father accidentally mixed in to make them?
1,000%.
That's true.
Oh, Chemical X. Chemical X. There we go. I knew it was something X.
Same thing. Different side of the same coin, you know?
Yeah, it's derived. It's the byproduct of the Element X fission.
Exactly.
So this is a crossover with Powerpuff Girls and Doctor Who. It's all the same universe.
I'm currently reading a book for this lefty book club I'm in that's like exposes a lot about the UN that's like pretty not great, and like all you ever learned in high school was like in the UN and it helps everybody out, and you're like, wait a second. But watching this movie, seeing them just be like, we're a part of the UN, I was like, here we go.
I do always love that, is Ishiro Honda's like eternal hopefulness for like the brotherhood of mankind. It's very, very cheesy and has not borne out in real life, but I love that he was so dedicated to that optimism all the way through his movies.
So committed.
But speaking of the other monsters, Mechanic Kong looks great. He's a fun design. And then Sam, like you said, you were surprised by Gorosaurus once again kicking up a storm.
Yeah, and he looked, honestly, Gorosaurus was to me the best looking monster. He was the handsome boy of this movie. I liked. He was very. He was like the texture of the underside of a turkey's neck. It's very textured.
I miss the thick thighs of Kong in certain movies.
Yes, for sure. Instead, you got like Kong has like it's like he has many little craters on him everywhere. Like his mouth that should be smooth or furry is just kind of like, I mean, I don't even know what it is. What's wrong with him? I don't know.
When the jaw snapping happened again, right? But then they added the frothing out of the mouth, which I thought was a particularly special addition.
It was fairly gross.
Almost more grotesque than in the original. There's blood running out of the T-Rex's mouth. So we've swapped in the foam.
Oh.
It works for Gorosaurus. He's a dramatic guy. He needs that extra level of bizarreness.
Destroy All Monsters. This is before. So this was Gorosaurus' debut.
It was. The recency of this movie is the only reason he's in Destroy All Monsters, because remember I talked about how the Baragon suit was in terrible shape. So they're like, who can we put in instead? And Gorosaurus' brand new suit was sitting there. So like, you're in, buddy.
Wait, is it people in the suit?
Yes.
That's the third comment my mom made. Can you believe it's just a bunch of people in those suits? But I was like, I don't think that's how it is. I forgot that that's how it is.
Yeah, typically. I mean, sometimes there's puppet characters, like whenever Mothra's flying or rolling around on the ground, that's usually a puppet. But yeah, it's the classic man in the suit technique.
It looks way better than the Chuck E. Cheese, animatronics or them in the suits. So I'll give him that credit.
Better than Chuck E. Cheese.
Also, I loved it was the hypnosis. I was like, what an easy fucking plot point to throw in. You're like, how do we, and it's like Doctor Who, hypnosis is his secret. Sure, like, why not?
He loves commanding King Kong to do things, even when he's not hypnotized. He's always like, Kong, do this. Go here.
They just had like a melting pot of like tools they've seen in recent things that they just threw in, and we're like, let's just throw them all in and see if they stick or not. We don't care.
It's all one big wacky grab bag for sure.
Do you think that's how they wrote these? Like by the mid 60s, do you think they were like, all right, let's put a bunch of, plot details and possible gadgets and or locations in a hat? All right, so we got hypnosis, North Pole. I don't know what Gorosaurus means.
Spy lipstick. We got fancy dress cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can make a movie of this one.
This one just says Kong with the O's drawn out. What do we do with this one?
And then like the temp walks in and goes, huh, Kong. And they're like, you're hired. She's reading it. What's your day job? I'm just a temp. You're an actress now. Welcome to Hollywood.
Like, I don't know why. Like, I know the movie probably wasn't objectively fantastic, but I just had a ball watching it. Sam, fight me on it.
I can't fight you enjoying a movie.
I know, but I tried to fight you enjoying the other movie.
I don't know. I liked the like, just like the weirdness of it. It kind of like is all super inconsequential, I guess. It was kind of like, it's another one. Like, that was kind of how it felt to me. That's kind of, I've been feeling like maybe this era of kind of like late 60s Toho movies just all kind of feel like it's another one to me. And that's, it didn't have any like moment that I was like, oh yeah, that I'm going to remember by the time we watch the next movie. But I didn't dislike it. I was cool with it.
That's a fair point. I think this is the most also ran of the also rans. Like the closest it gets to like a solid, memorable image is the like climbing the Tokyo Tower together. That looks pretty good and it's pretty interesting, but like it definitely, despite how bizarre it is, it fails to make its mark. It's got like shades of Sea Monster and shades of King Kong versus Godzilla. It's still looking for its own stamp.
Yeah, it was like comfortable, but not maybe the most memorable. But I was like, oh, fun, we're back to this.
It's interesting you said that that you forgot that they were men in suits, because I was kind of surprised. It's been just a little while now since we've watched one of these from this time, but I was kind of surprised that they've kind of abandoned any additional tricks to making it look like this is an actual giant monster in an actual full-size city. It's like gone are the days where they're shooting these at high speed, you know, like it's like, no, they're just, it's, you know, everything's moving like it's a normal size, like a tiny thing. And, you know, and like kind of, I kind of remembered some of the earlier ones. They kind of shot up at things a little bit more and tried again, like, and filmed it in slow motion. And so I was kind of surprised. I was like, the whole time I felt especially aware of like, oh, it's some guys in suits, and maybe they just had gotten to a point where that was just what the genre was, and they were like, we're not even like, I guess it felt like they were not even pretending that these were giant monsters anymore in a weird way.
It was definitely at the point where it was a machine, and they had to make these very fast. A lot of the love had gone out of it, for lack of a better word, better phrase. But before we go formally into the judgments, is one delightful little thing I noticed about this, and maybe you guys will just shrug at it. But I found it very funny that of all the full-sized Kong props they could have made that would have been useful, a giant hand, a giant foot, they chose to make a giant Kong ear for the scene where they put the little mind control implants in his ears. And I was just like, you really did that.
Mm-hmm.
I did think that was fantastic.
I was hoping someone would walk in with a giant Q-tip. That was like Mac actually walked through and goes, where's the giant Q-tip? I think it's because we both watched a Simpsons episode where it's like Krusty the Clown's sketch. You know, he's doing sketches on his show, and it's an episode of the Big Ear Family, and it's just the only joke they have is them holding giant Q-tips.
You know, you're not supposed to put those in your ears.
But it's so satisfying.
So really, they were looking out for Kong.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to put mind control devices in your ears either, Brian. I like that he just pulls them out of his ears. It would have been a lot easier if they weren't cordless mind control headphones. You know, if they had a cord, and he just, the first thing that happened, like the moment he walked into the tunnel, they just like got caught on a doorknob.
I do also have to say though, like, she was always pretty pissy with Doctor Who, and it was like, he did a pretty good job. Like, he wasn't perfect the first time around, but like the robot and Kong both did get pretty far based on his ideas. That was one I was like, you're not really trying here, dude or lady.
That's true. I do feel for Doctor Who. It just seems really hard to mine Element X, because everything fucks up when you get close to it.
Right. Like, who is everyone's favorite character in the film?
I think Madame Piranha.
It's either her or Doctor Who for me.
I do like Akira Takarada just because he puts his charm in everything he does.
He's so fucking earnest, always.
It's gotta be Madame Piranha. Alright, so once again, we must place these movies in their proper place in the King Kong afterlife. Joanna, where does King Kong Escapes go for you?
I think it's also going to go in the lower rung of heaven. I enjoyed it, but I have this hope that something's going to like blow me away, but then I have this fear that nothing will. But I'm saving that top space just in case. But yeah, I loved the costumes and the characters and vibe of all of it, and I think I was happy to be back in the comfort of these wacky 60s times and was here for it, despite the fact that there were like a few plot points in that and some dumb voice dubbing.
Yeah, it's a fun, comfy back in the saddle entry. It was perfect for that, I'll say. For me, this might be a little surprising. I was more engaged watching this than the original, but not by that much. And it doesn't impress in the same way. So this is like par. This is like knocking the ball straight down the fairway, and you're like, okay, that's a fine shot. So like, if you haven't seen it before, by all means go for it. This is a million times more entertaining than Rodan, for example. But I'm still going to give it Purgatory because it fails to stand out. This is the person who was going for valedictorian, and you're like, yeah, your grades are pretty good, but not as good as they could have been, and you didn't do any extracurriculars, so really you ended up looking worse than the kids that didn't even try. That last part is mean and irrelevant, but the rest of the metaphor stands. Purgatory.
Yeah, I'm purgatory too. I'm in agreement. I enjoyed the original 30s King Kong more. It's the 40th best American movie ever made, according to the AFI. This is a movie. It's a movie. It's fun. I was neither bored by it nor particularly charmed or impressed by it either. It was just, I think Doctor Who's appearance is fun. It was cool. It was fine. It's purgatory. That's why I can't even think of things to say about it. That's why it's purgatory. It's a movie.
I think that's a good way to put it. This is a movie. I enjoyed some of the elements of it a little more than you guys, so I put it in that lower rung. But in general, it's a movie. It's not a terrible movie, but it's just a movie.
It is a solid entry in the King Kong canon, but I wanted us to talk about it because it was Toho's only other crack at the character. I do have a fan message here. I forgot to record the name. I'm sorry. Here we go. Love the podcast. As a G fan, I always felt like I was part of a small populace, but a podcast like this lets me know I'm not alone. You all poke fun and appreciate the best parts of Godzilla, and I look forward to every new episode. I hope you guys extend to other Godzilla media when you've caught up. Things like the Godzilla Power Hour or the Godzilla 98 TV series. Parentheses, since it redeemed the movie. You are all awesome, and keep it up.
Sam, we really are going to be going till we're 67 years old.
But, very nice notes like that make it worth it for me to dedicate my life to.
Yes, agreed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We always appreciate it. I hear that this seems to be a common thread over the last few messages I've read where you feel like you're not alone anymore. And that's a good feeling to have. This is your unsafe safe space where Godzilla can be made fun of, but it's okay because we all love him dearly. I don't know if Sam and Joanna would say that the series redeemed the movie though, because they seem to think it doesn't need redeeming. But thank you so much. And if you want to have your message read, please send us an email, comment on our website or our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course we love it when you leave a review on iTunes. That's the best thing of all. Tell people all about us. Let your friends and family know that they can listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, and of course Spotify. Next episode we got 2 more Kong classics spelled with 2 Ks. Not King Kong classics for an obvious reason. The 1976 King Kong, which in some ways is my favorite of the 3, and it's very embarrassing, and we'll see why in the next episode. And Kong Skull Island, of course, getting into his solo MonsterVerse entry.
Wow, which I'm excited for that because I do love Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, so we finally got to visit the new MonsterVerse movie that got all of the A-list actors. They all signed on to do the series and then all opted to do the same movie and leave the other movies with not as known of actors.
That was a very awkward way of saying that, but you are correct. It's definitely, all 3 of them so far have been pretty different, but Kong Skull Island definitely has a kind of vibe you wouldn't necessarily expect. So both of these will be really fun. Watch them before next month. We can't wait to see you back here on Skull Island.
Catch you on Skull Island.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Godzillavangelists is produced by me, Ryan Sargent, with support from my friends Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. This episode was edited by the ever-capable Julia Waldman. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the talented artists who made the movies that we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work, not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at godzillavangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at GodzillaVangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us again next time. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.